Is Ireland poised for a populist or anti-establishment moment? I believe it might very well be, because the government has badly misread the room on immigration. The government is completely out of touch with popular sentiment on immigration. It has pushed through a series of immigration policies that frankly have left local citizens exasperated and angry. And this is in a country that is traditionally very welcoming towards immigrants, towards foreigners, towards strangers, towards people in need. But the government has pushed that welcoming spirit to its limits by imposing a top-down, unilateral policy in terms of asylum centers being plopped down all over the country with almost no consultation with local stakeholders. In one case, over 1,000 Ukrainians were to be moved to a village of around 100 in County Wicklow. The fact is that the existing housing and healthcare infrastructure is broken and dysfunctional and is not adequate for even the native population of Ireland, let alone these waves of immigrants. So by opening Ireland's borders to large numbers of immigrants without fixing the underlying infrastructure of healthcare and housing, the government has precipitated an enormous crisis, a crisis in housing and a crisis in healthcare. These sectors were already in a crisis, but the government pushed that crisis even further. Now, we've seen this sort of scenario played out across Europe, and the result has almost invariably been a swing towards the right and the mainstream traditional parties bleeding votes towards what have been called far-right parties, and what we might call parties of law and order, parties that want stricter immigration policies, and so forth. Last May, in a Red C poll, 75% of respondents in a national sample said they believed that Ireland was taking in too many refugees. The same number said that they could appreciate the anger of local people due to the way in which immigrants were being moved into their communities. Just last week, a poll published in The Independent suggested that 28% of Irish citizens would be open to voting for an anti-immigration party. Now, I'm not anti-immigration per se. I've lived most of my life as an immigrant in different countries, and I come from a country that has a long history of emigration, but immigration policy cannot be just a carte blanche. It cannot be simply a completely anarchistic sort of free-for-all. There has to be order in immigration, because if there isn't, then you saturate the resources and the infrastructure of a country. You may end up bringing in people who don't fit into the society. You may end up bringing in people who pose a security threat to the society as well. Therefore, immigration has to be done in a sensible way, in a balanced way, and in a proportionate way. And when a government fails to do that, it evokes anti-immigration sentiment. It prompts frustration and anger and a backlash. So when you read in the international media that there are far-right elements pushing an anti-immigration narrative, bear in mind that 75% of people believed that Ireland was taking in too many migrants in May of this year. And 75% of Irish people could appreciate the anger of local communities. So are we prepared to say that 75% of Irish people are far right, to me, that's a complete reductio ad absurdum of any kind of claim that concern over immigration is a far right phenomenon. So, what's going to happen next? Well, my guess is that the Irish political and media establishment will pretty much just look the other way and pretend that there isn't really any serious issue here. And they might make some very small modifications to their immigration policies. But I think ultimately the initiative will be with political entrepreneurs, with people who want to offer a different product to the citizens, with people who want to address those concerns explicitly. Who will these political entrepreneurs be? Who will these new personalities be? I don't know. Will it be some of the existing independents? Will there be new characters entering into Irish politics? I really don't know. But if I was a gambling man, I would bet that somebody will tap into this discontent and channel it. And you might call it opportunism, but I would say that's the democratic process. Because when people are silenced, are relegated to the margins, are dismissed as far-right loonies for raising concerns about public services, infrastructure, housing, and security, it's inevitable that somebody will give a voice to those concerns, that somebody will listen and give those concerns a platform in the political process. If somebody manages to put together a more or less respectable party addressing the concerns of voters on the issue of immigration and on other issues like housing and healthcare, then there's at least some chance that they could win a lot of the alienated voters, including citizens who would not normally vote. Only time will tell.